Hello everyone, welcome to Simply Learn Programming. And today we'll be looking at the 5 concepts of Java. This will show you the main concepts based on the previous 2 tutorials about Java that define Java as a separate language. There's a bit more to it, which I will be featuring in future videos. However, I think that those 5 concepts are the most important ones that define the language. Here's the first one. The first one is the first thing that we learned. It's about variables. What are they? Well, in computer programming, a variable is a storage location and an associated symbolic name that contains some known or unknown quantity of information, a value. For example, int a equals 20. So variables, they're specific for every language. We saw a bit of them at the first video. We explored some of them, and you saw the way that you assign values, which is another concept. But the variables themselves are one of the concepts. The second concept is control structures, or as I like to call it, is the code flow. Well, the code flow, let me show you real quick, is the way that code flows throughout the code. So for example, as I have already told you in one of the previous videos, the code will first read class hello world, public void main string, and then it's gonna say int first array. So this initializes the array. And then it's gonna give 10 values to the array, and then it's gonna assign first this, then it's gonna end. Then this, then it's gonna end. Then this, then it's gonna end. And I'm gonna show you that it's really important because if we delete this and if we initialize the array after we have given it 10 variables, and then on each spot of the numbers of the array we assign a different number. Well, if we initialize the array after the code, even though they're on the same page, it's gonna give an error. Why? Because the code goes up to down. See, everything failed. However, if we do this, it's gonna read this first, then this, then this. So the code flow up to down. So that's one of the. So that's the second concept of Java programming. The third concept, as I have shown, are data structures. Those are the different types of lists, such as array list or a hash map. Well, I've shown you already what an array list is, and it's really not that complicated. It's just a list of things that you own, that you have in a list. Well, the definition is a little bit more down to earth because there's a lot of, you could say, meat on data structures. Let's use a list of contacts as an example, like, I don't know, like this. If we decide to type in, let's say, let me think about it. So let's make a list, contacts, how do I call this? Okay, let's make a list. List contacts equals a new list, which is going to be array list. We're gonna do empty scopes and dots. Okay, so this initializes a list of contacts. If we want to add something to this list, let me get rid of this. So if we want to add something in this specific list of contacts, we'll type contacts dot add, and here we can add, for example, Joshua, Peters, and then Josh.Peters, Gmail. Let's not do Gmail. Some company, company.com, and that's gonna add the contacts to. That's gonna add. Oops. See, we should always add the end of the sentence. Well, it's it doesn't work here. That that's because of another uh, thing, and that's the environment. But it basically makes a list. If you want to add something to the list, you're gonna that's an empty array list, of course. You need to use the add function. That's another concept of Java. That different types of lists. This is correct. It just doesn't show it as correct because it's an online compiler, and I'm gonna explain that later. So, different types of lists. There is an array list. However, there is also a hash map. That's another type of list, really similar to like the concept of array lists. However, hash maps is more versatile. I could make a whole 1 hour video of it or like become a university teacher with lectures about it. It's gonna take us one lecture if I be honest. But hash map is a whole different part, but it's part of the lists concept, you know. It's type of the different types of lists. You see, there's different types of lists as well as there's different types of variables. So fourth concept is the syntax. This basically means the grammar you're gonna use in the language. I'm sorry, Grammarly won't help you on this one. So the grammar means, as I said here, this feature shows the data type of a variable. So for example, if you want to initialize our array list of integers, well, you must first type in the data type of the array list. What's gonna be contained in this array list? That's one of the concepts. That's one of the concepts of the syntax. So another thing of the syntax is the semicolon. You see, in Java, you have to define, like, each time at the end of each line of code, you have to type in a semicolon because it indicates that this particular code segment is being complete. Another one is the curly brackets. They're used in every function or method. They're not shown here, but for example here, so this public static void main, this means that this basically runs your code. This says, look, you're in the engine that's gonna run your code. And those curly brackets say, those curly brackets are like the borders in which you can write code. That's my best explanation of this. But it works for everything and every function and every statement. You use curly brackets. That's part of the Java syntax. That's one of the concepts. Well, another syntax is the square brackets in array list. For example, in other languages, you wouldn't make an array list this way. You would make them a different way in Python, in C++, in CSS. But in Java, you make them this way. You must type in the square brackets right here. And strings, for example, another example is strings. How you see this? This is a string. This is defined that it's a string thanks to the quotation marks. So this is also Java syntax. That's one of the concepts of Java. So you see how important grammar is. And that's going to become apparent to you after you start studying different programming languages, because right now it's not that, you know, whoa, it's whatever. Because if that's your first language, you'll be like, wow, that's cool, so I do this way, or I do this way. But for example, if you try like me to change from Java to, let's say, Python, and in Python, a lot of the syntax is completely different. It's like, how do I say this? So it's like telling a story to your friends or writing an official essay. So it's like two completely different things, but you're still telling a story, you know? So that's the differences in syntax. It's still like a bunch of words, but the way you put them together, the way the grammar you're gonna use, that's the syntax. Syntax is programming grammar. And the fifth concept of Java programming and overall in programming is the tool or coding environment. So what I like to use, I don't know if you can see this, but I love using Apache NetBeans. I suggest you to visit the official website, which I'm going to put in the description, and download Apache NetBeans, and there to follow their simple guide um, how to make a class, how to make a method. You start to understand Java concepts in much further detail. I'll also add in some links in the description um, that explain the and how important the environment is. So what I mainly like to use is called Apache NetBeans, and this is really important for the Java environment. As I told you, it differentiates the types of code you can write. And Apache NetBeans, in my opinion, is really quick to run your code. It's not too heavy on your computer. By the way, I'm using a laptop, so it's not too heavy on laptops either. And laptops are known to be more weaker. So Apache NetBeans, perfect Java environment. It's gonna suggest you some code. It's gonna generate some code in the future for you. It's really good with working on classes. Doesn't give errors in my experience. I've been programming on Java for 4 years, and I can say that I recommend Apache NetBeans as your Java environment for coding. But that's the last concept of programming that you need for Java especially, and overall in languages, is the tool you're gonna use. As you see, this online compiler, I'm using it just for example. However, if you want to start learning it really in depth, I suggest you to download a specific environment for yourself. Thank you for watching, and see you in the next video, where I'm gonna talk more about programming concepts and different types of them. See ya.